Have you ever noticed how a single mean comment from a stranger or a rude text from a friend or a partner can totally hijack your brain? It's like they've tied an invisible string to your heart, and every time they act like a jerk, they pull that string and make you jump. You end up spending your whole day having imaginary arguments in your head, feeling hot in the chest, and losing your sleep. But what if I told you that you could cut those strings today? What if you could be like a massive, solid mountain that doesn't move, no matter how hard the wind screams at it? Wait, before we learn how to become that mountain, I need you to do one thing. Stay with me until the very last tip. Number 10 is a brain flip. That makes it physically impossible for anyone to ruin your day ever again. You ready? Let's dive in. Most people think being stoic means having a poker face or hiding your feelings in a dark box. That is actually the opposite of what the great teachers meant. True stoicism is realizing that other people's words are just noises, like a dog barking or a car honking. You don't get mad at a car for honking, right? You just keep walking. Here are 10 unconventional, weird ways to make sure nobody ever bothers you again. Imagine walking into a ward where the patients aren't suffering from physical ailments, but from a total loss of emotional sanity. Suddenly, that screaming stranger isn't a villain, they're just another person in a cast. The mental asylum framework is a powerful Stoic reframe that shifts your perspective from victimhood to clinical observation. Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus argued that a person who acts with malice or ignorance is suffering from a sickness of the soul. When someone lashes out, their internal compass is broken. They are momentarily blinded by a fever of anger or a virus of insecurity. By viewing a rude individual as a patient rather than a peer, you replace reactive rage with a quiet, detached pity. You wouldn't feel insulted if a person with a high fever spoke nonsense in a hospital, so why let a person with an emotional fever dictate your peace? This mental shift allows you to maintain your dignity, transforming a potential confrontation into a moment of internal grace. You aren't losing a battle of wills. You're simply watching a pre-programmed sequence run its course in a game you've already mastered. The video Game NPC Hack is a brilliant psychological reframe that strips the emotional power from difficult people by stripping them of their perceived agency. In the world of Stoicism, this aligns with the idea that most people act out of deep-seated habits and conditioning rather than conscious choice. When a boss nitpicks or a stranger cuts you off in traffic, they aren't making a creative, personal decision to ruin your day. They are simply executing a limited script coded by their own insecurities, upbringing, or stress. By categorizing these individuals as non-player characters, you stop expecting them to exhibit the free will to be kind or rational. You wouldn't get genuinely offended at a digital character for repeating the same annoying line of dialogue. You'd simply navigate around them. This perspective shift turns a stressful confrontation into a predictable game mechanic. Instead of reacting with heat, you observe the nitpick script or the aggression loop with clinical detachment. You realize that their behavior is a glitch in their system, not a reflection of your worth. This allows you to remain the protagonist of your own life, moving through the level of your day without letting background characters drain your health bar. Why would you spend your entire afternoon clutching a sack of rotting garbage just because a stranger handed it to you with a smile? The trash bag. Handoff is a visceral Stoic visualization that redefines how we process insults and negativity. In this framework, a mean comment or a disrespectful gesture isn't a weapon that strikes you. It is a gift of trash that requires your consent to receive. Stoicism teaches that we are not harmed by things, but by our judgment of them. If someone insults you, they are effectively holding out a bag of their own internal toxicity, hoping you'll lighten their load by taking it from them. When you react with anger, you have officially reached out, grabbed the handles, and agreed to carry that stench into your next meeting, your dinner, and your sleep. However, by remaining indifferent, the transaction fails. The trash remains firmly in their hands. and they are the ones who must continue to live with the smell of their own bitterness. This perspective shift transforms a potential conflict into a simple choice of hygiene. You realize that your peace of mind is a clean room, and you have no obligation to let someone else's emotional refuse clutter it. By simply saying no thanks internally, you leave the negativity exactly where it belongs, with the person who created it. Imagine waking up every morning knowing exactly which villains are going to cross your path, turning every insult into a predictable line in a play you've already read. The script reversal is a practical application of the Stoic premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. We often suffer not from the event itself, but from the shock of our unmet expectations. When we expect the world to be rational and kind, a rude encounter feels like a personal violation. However, by flipping the script and intentionally anticipating the liar, the jerk, and the loudmouth, you strip away the element of surprise that fuels emotional reactivity. This isn't about being a pessimist. It's about being a realist. Marcus Aurelius famously practiced this daily, noting that people act this way because they cannot tell good from evil. When you encounter a loudmouth, you don't recoil in anger. You simply check a box. There's the character I scheduled for 10 a.m. You think by inviting these behaviors to the party in your mind. Before you even leave the house, you maintain your internal fortress. You aren't a victim of someone's bad behavior. You are a prepared observer watching a predicted event unfold. This mental rehearsal transforms a stressful ambush into a routine, confirmation of your own foresight, keeping your peace of mind entirely bulletproof. Imagine stepping out of your own skin and into the sterile, white coat of a laboratory scientist, where your burning rage is no longer a personal crisis, but a fascinating biological data point. The third-person narrator is a powerful psychological tool known as cognitive distancing. When we say, "I am angry," we fuse our entire identity with the emotion, making it nearly impossible to think clearly. By shifting to the third person, you create a vital gap between your consciousness and your physiological response. You are no longer the person drowning in the wave. You are the lifeguard on the shore observing the tide. Instead of being a victim of your heat, you describe the human subject as if you were narrating a nature documentary. The subject is experiencing a localized elevation in skin temperature and a spike in cortisol because a colleague missed a deadline, you might observe. This linguistic shift acts as a circuit breaker for the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system. By turning your feelings into data, you strip them of their power to hurt you. You become the impartial watcher, coolly analyzing the mechanics of a temporary biological state. This detachment doesn't suppress the emotion. It simply places it under a microscope where it can be understood, rather than felt as an overwhelming force. Imagine standing in the center of a glowing boundary where the world's chaos hits an invisible wall. Outside, the storms of opinion and traffic howl, but inside, you are the absolute sovereign of a silent, untouchable kingdom. The magic circle property is a spatial visualization of the Stoic dichotomy of control. We often suffer because we mentally trespass into territories we cannot govern. When you worry about a colleague's snide remark or the sudden downpour ruining your plans, you are effectively leaving your own yard to go stand in theirs. Stoicism draws a hard line. Your thoughts, your intentions, and your reactions are inside the circle. Everything else is external and therefore none of your business. By defining these boundaries, you realize that a mean comment is a physical object sitting on someone else's lawn. To get offended, you have to physically cross your own border, pick up their property, and bring it back into your space. Why would you do that? The magic circle keeps you grounded in your own agency. If it's outside the circle, it has no power to touch you unless you grant it entry. By staying in your yard, you conserve your emotional energy for the only things that actually matter, your own character and your next choice. This mental fence doesn't just protect you. It liberates you from the exhausting labor of trying to manage a world that was never yours to control. Imagine holding a priceless heirloom and knowing with absolute certainty that it is already shattered in the future. Suddenly, the moment it finally slips from your fingers, the crash sounds less like a tragedy and more like a predictable click of a clock. The broken toy theory is a profound Stoic exercise in managing expectations and grief through the lens of impermanence. Epictetus famously suggested that when you kiss your child or your spouse, you should remind yourself that they are mortal. This sounds morbid, but it is actually the ultimate form of emotional insurance. If you treat a glass cup as an indestructible diamond, you will be devastated when it inevitably meets a hard flaw. But if you acknowledge its nature as a breakable thing from the start, you appreciate its utility while it lasts and accept its end without losing your composure. This logic applies beautifully to human character. We often walk around expecting people to be made of unbreakable kindness or stainless steel patience. When a friend snaps or a partner loses their cool, we feel betrayed by a flaw in the universe. The broken toy theory reframes this. Their temper was always a fragile mechanism. When they act out, you don't need to be outraged. You simply observe that their niceness has reached its structural limit today. By recognizing that human emotions are inherently breakable, you stop demanding that the world be made of something it isn't. You allow people to be the fragile, temporary, and often glitchy beings they are, which preserves your own internal peace when the inevitable cracks appear. Imagine every irritating encounter is actually a high-stakes drill in a hidden gym where the weights are the insults of others and your gains are measured in absolute, unshakable serenity. The secret trainer mode is a transformative Stoic reframe that turns every annoyance into an opportunity for personal growth. In this mindset, the universe isn't conspiring against your happiness. It's providing a world-class coaching staff designed to help you build your peace muscle. We often view difficult people as obstacles to our day, but Stoicism suggests they are the very equipment we need to get stronger. Without resistance, there is no growth. When a customer service agent is unhelpful or a neighbor is unnecessarily loud, they aren't just being a nuisance, they are your coach for today. They are handing you a heavy set of patience reps. Instead of reacting with a weak explosion of anger, you engage your core of calm. You realize that by staying composed, you are actually leveling up your character. Each time you refuse to be baited, your emotional resilience doubles. This shift moves you from a state of passive frustration to active participation. You can almost wink at the person bothering you and think, "Thanks for the workout, coach. I'm getting stronger because of you." This doesn't just neutralize the stress. It makes you grateful for the very people who used to ruin your mood, as they are the unwitting architects of your inner strength. Imagine a world where every insult thrown your way is a physical projectile, but instead of bracing for the impact, you simply vanish into thin air, watching the stone pass through the space you once occupied and clatter harmlessly to the ground. The ghost power is a profound psychological shift that moves you from being a target to being a vacuum. Most of our suffering in social conflict comes from our solidity, our ego, our need to be right, and our desire to be seen as important. When we present a solid wall of self-importance, every critical word has a surface to strike, creating friction, heat, and pain. We feel the impact because we have given the ball something to hit. To become a ghost is to practice the ultimate form of Stoic humility. It's the realization that if you don't need to win the argument or defend your reputation, the attacker loses their target. If someone calls you a name and you have no ego attached to that label, the word doesn't land. It simply passes through you. You aren't taking the hit. You are refusing to be there for the hit in the first place. This isn't about being weak. It's about being untouchable. By letting go of the need to be somebody in the eyes of a fool, you gain the superpower of invisibility. The ball hits the floor, the attacker exhausts themselves, and you remain entirely unbothered, floating through the situation with your peace of mind intact. It is the ultimate victory of nothingness over the noise of the world. Imagine walking through a crowded marketplace with a pouch of pure gold at your hip, where every snide remark or cut off in traffic is a stranger reaching out to pick your pocket. Would you really just hand over your fortune to someone you don't even respect? The gold coins framework is the ultimate Stoic accounting system for your emotional energy. It transforms the abstract concept of inner peace into a finite, precious currency. In this visualization, you begin each day with exactly 100 gold coins. These coins represent your focus, your good mood, and your mental clarity. When someone acts like a jerk, they are effectively asking for a payout. By getting angry, shouting back, or ruminating on their rudeness for an hour, you aren't defending yourself. You are literally handing them your gold. This nuclear option works because it appeals to your sense of value. Most people we clash with are individuals we wouldn't even lend $5 to. Yet we habitually hand them hundreds of dollars worth of our mental well-being. Before you react, stop and perform a quick cost-benefit analysis. Is this person, this stranger, this internet troll, this bitter colleague, worth a single coin of my happiness? The answer is almost always a resounding no. By choosing silence and indifference, you keep your wealth. You walk away with your pouch full, while they are left standing there, bankrupt of the reaction they were trying to steal. You don't just win the interaction. You stay rich in the only currency that truly matters, your own tranquility. Being unshakable isn't about being tough. It's about being smart. You are the only person who has the keys to your happiness. If you let a mean person make you sad, you just gave them your keys. Take your keys back. Lock the door. And remember, the mountain doesn't care what the wind says. If this made you feel a little more like a mountain today, do me a favor, comment the word iron below. So I know you're building that mental fortress. Hit that subscribe button to keep your mind sharp. Go out there and keep your gold today. Talk soon.